And hello and welcome to AleksConnects Creative Sandbox. My name is Alex and let's continue our Fanart project Angry Birds vs Transformers. Yes, so let's do that. But before that, let's give me a sec. I need to finish one thing. So, oh come on, we still have trouble with. Good, so yeah, one sec. I need to finish one thing. Yeah, and after this, of course, we will continue to work on our final thing. So, one sec. One quick sec, or a couple of seconds. Oh, la la la. Yeah, can only start it and I'll be back in a minute. Let's this is not very good thing, but please wait. I'll be back. And I'm back. Yeah, sorry for that. Yes, so let's continue. That was awesome start. But again, this is the thing about live streams. Okay, so we will continue today to work with making this Fanart a little bit better. So previously we, for the most part, actually analyzed lighting in 3D in order to understand, do we making the right thing? And then our main job was to finally start with lighting. And throughout the previous session I determined value range for a red character, for just basically the red. We started from local colors, and then we went through determining the lights and darks for this character. By understanding the type of material that this character is. So, matte material, that means it's low contrast, that means there's a limited value range. So basically the same we are going to work, we will continue to work. So today it's not going to be that much talk. For the most part I just wanted to make sure that throughout this session I will actually determine values for most of the characters, because this is something that I'm looking forward to. Again, the faster we will finish this one, the faster we will go to final design and then to rendering finally. So, okay, let's start. By the way, throughout the previous session I faced a lot of problems, unfortunately, with the placement of the layers. And I actually made a stupid mistake by working with saturation mode instead of the color mode. So now we have color layer on top, which preserves values. We have our black and white layer on top, which makes this thing black and white for us to see if we write with values or not. And on top, or on the bottom of it, we have our our value layer, which actually just basically everything in here. And on top we're actually painting our first pass, and throughout this pass we actually will determining all these value ranges. So let's just continue to do that. So everything works fine. We don't need references for this, because again, this is kind of was my problem in the beginning. I was afraid that I can't do this without references. Like, how the heck I'm going to be able to actually determine values for all of these characters if I don't know like how to control it? And again, in the end I find a way to control it by understanding the type of material, understanding the local value of our characters, which are pretty strict, because these local values are like actually creating the type of composition that we need. And if we are going to mess up this value, these local values, by changing them, we will change the colors and contrasts that we already determined. So these colors are strict for us, and these contrasts are strict, at least up till the point when we actually going to start to render all these things. And maybe in rendering stages, if something not going to work, we will slightly change it. But for the most part, we will make sure that everything is going to work with these values. So after this stage, actually, after we will go through understanding the value ranges from darkest darks for a particular character and the lightest lights for the particular character, again, they are controlled by understanding the type of surface that we're working with, because again, it kind of already answers the questions about contrast. Is it low contrast or over average or high contrast? And of course, by looking how it looks in the color. And of course, then we have the ability to actually check are we right or we're wrong by looking at references and actually making them black and white and see how it looks. So again, for the red, these values are actual values. The lightest light for the red is this one. I'm not considering this part because it's just his accessory. I'm considering the overall body, most part of his body. Yeah, the darkest darks actually for him is this one. These small elements like these dots that he has or his belly, we will make it in a final rendering only. I'm not going to bother about this that much at this point because our main goal is to determine the dominant value range. And these small details like this one, value for this one, it's just going to be determined by comparison with already existent value. So, for instance, we see, okay, this one is considerably light, but this one much lighter. We will go probably a couple of value high and we'll make this one. So it's not that hard thing to do, so I'm not going to stress about it that much. So yeah, let's just continue. So we also determined values for Chuck. Let's just go into our first pass. And actually we will do the same, because again, he has slightly lighter values. We can see the change in here. Maybe 40, 41. That means that the darkest values are going to be a little bit lighter. Probably not 28 but 30, or yes. By the way, where are wireframe? We kinda need it. It's pretty hard to determine darks. Again, I'm putting darks in the places where this light source could create. So when this light source is basically not hitting the bubbles. I don't think that this part of the bubbles is going to be lit up at all. For the most part, he's going to be in the dark. And of course the lightest lights, since these are similar values, they're probably going to be actually 50, a little bit lighter. I'll put them somewhere in here. This wing actually is going to be in shadow, because partially the body of the bubbles actually doesn't not affected by this light, so it kind of cut off in half, at least for now. I will think we'll see how it's going to look. If it's not going to look that good, I will change it, of course. Let's just put these values right away in here. So we have approximately 30. and this one is going to be 50. There's 130. They look the same actually, but there's a slight changes. For instance, this change we could see only with okay, for bubbles, again, determined our base values. The darkest darks and the lightest lights. It's going to be relatively quick, I guess, because again, I'm not going to render whatever is here. I'm just going to suggest where these darkest darks could be placed and where the lightest lights could be placed, and that's kind of it. I'm going to overdo things. Of course, I'm not considering the occlusions, because when we are actually going to render things, occlusions will make things a little bit more realistically. And of course, in the places there where light is just basically doesn't reach, we will put occlusions, and they are actually going to be super dark, probably in the range of 10, 12, maybe 15, maybe even to 5. And of course they will have a little bit more saturation to them. They're not just going to be black, because making occlusions black when you're working with color, it's not a very good idea. They need to be either warm or cool, depending on the light conditions. For the most part, they actually will be warm, because the shadow area, usually the cool area, and occlusions could be warm, or the opposite. Again, we will think about this a little bit later. Actually, where are 50? And I'm not working with these type of values yet. Only things that in light. That actually looks pretty silly, because this form maybe if I will make it like this, it would be a little bit more form showing. It's pretty hard to see form in this. And this one is just cut away by light. We assume this part slightly in shadow. Or in light. Right here is going to be actually occlusion, which will make which separate things, so I'm not going to stress about that much. So yeah, and also I'm not considering their beaks and other things. So because beaks are actually different material. Again, beaks are going to have a little bit like slight difference to them. They still going to be a matte surface though. But for now, we're actually establishing values for our characters, like the overall colors of our characters. We're not thinking about every part of the detail, eyes and other things. because they're not necessarily something that will make this look from far good. So we're going from big to small. Okay, let's just go and find values for chalk. Chalk lighter. Again, I'm going to keep values in a range of 10. So 61, that means 51 in here, as the dark is dark. Oh no, I'm painting in swatches. Okay. And 71, the lightest. Again, I'm not trying to render it per se. I'm not trying to establish the actual form. Although I probably should. Okay. Again, this light kind of shines from here, rays of light, which is, I'm just trying to find where these intersect and create light zone where they cut off. Actually, the zone is going to be a little bit bigger. Slack is going to be revealed slightly. And let's just go to swatches and okay, chalk. His local values are these. Let's go through palettes. Maybe we'll find something in palettes close to what we need. $50, the darkest. And 81. Oh, and the lightest one. And just see how it's going to look in color. Without sketch. Yeah, kind of works. The same actually for bubbles. Again, if we're going to see reference, oh, come on. Here it is. Again, slightly different lighting conditions, so they're not going to be exact, but they actually work pretty much the same. Right here actually a little bit lighter, but just in color, not in value. Value probably the same. Darkest darks are actually something closer to this one, and again, local value is the same. So for Chuck it works. A good. Good. By the way, let's just quickly test black and white too. Yeah, as you see, values are pretty similar. In the middle ones and the darkest ones too. Good. Let's just smudge them slightly because they actually look not that interesting because there's no transition. If we're actually going to add small transition, it's going to look a little bit better. This is something that I want to learn, is to depict the zones of the light and shadow by just like these type of separations. I think it comes with experience. The more you go through these things, the better you will make choices. Slight transitions. Soft transitions. Of course, their actual rendering is going to look a little bit different. Not a little bit, actually a lot different, because we need to depict feathers slightly, but for the most part it's just going to be the part of the texture. Texture will do it for us. And let's just go to the bomb. Again, bomb is the same type of material for every Angry Bird's body. Hair, when we start rendering, it's closer to a matte surface, and then in some places we could add glossiness, subsurface scattering, or deep or surface textures to make it more realistic, but at the base it's matte surface. And again, matte surfaces are low contrast. That means that from our base value range, it's just can't go too dark and too light. So this is our base 12. It means that if we're going to take a value range in 10 up and down, that means that down it's 2, which is actually pretty close to super dark. Maybe we actually going to drop it a little bit higher, maybe 4 or 5, because we need to actually keep place for occlusions. This is something actually to test, because if we can't go darker, we need to... By the way, the dark objects actually have less contrast present. That means we're probably not going to go too high. We'll see how it's going to look though. The darker object is, the smaller the contrast division becomes, so probably not difference in 5, but difference, or not difference in 10, but probably difference in 5 would be appropriate. Yes. Because 2 it's too dark. It's pretty close to actually occlusion. So yeah, 5 and 12 and 20. Actually 22. Let's try. Still, I need to turn on sketching and wireframe, because sketching already has this form in it, and wireframe actually helps this form to be visible. May pray. Let's just go darker first, and then we'll put lights. Go with 5. Again, we need to be careful with darks, especially in this area. It's going to be a lighter area. And let's go lighter, which is 22. Now let's just go slightly smudge them. Okay, good. Watch it without wireframe and sketching. Yeah, it kind of works. Because again, if we're actually going to look at this with color, actually I make him super brownish. I don't think that we need to make him super brown. He has this brownish color to it though, but it's super subtle. I think we actually need to make him a little bit darker probably. Maybe darken a little his values. Still going to see him though. Again, 12, 30, 35, 25, 20. Yeah, there's no darker. I think at least lightest area I think work. Maybe the darkest, like the mid-range value may be too high. This one kind of works. 20-30 difference. And when we add actually a highlight, it will be probably 50 or 60 either. No, come on. There's the reason why this thing is happening because I have zoom in or changing size of the brush, and if I'm not going to click on canvas and try to size brush, it's just going to type whatever. And here we need to be careful with it. So yeah, I will later add this slight highlight from this one. It will actually make things a little bit cooler. Slight glossiness will be present in it. And it will actually pop up the character from the background better. Okay, it's enough for this. Again, establishing these values, ideally I don't even need to paint those in here. The only reason why I'm actually doing this is just to see if it's going to work or not. But like, we're doing this only to establish these values and then use them when we're actually going to paint. So instead of like just basically choosing values in the final rendering, I already going to know what colors I need to fill all these all this line art. Like, so I will start to fill red with this one, bomb with this one, chuck with this one, bubbles with this one, and after we actually will fill them and fill everything, we will see in the big scale if it's going to work. But for the most part, things are already working in here. This contrast doesn't fight with whatever is on the background. We will see what's going to happen when we actually make this one a little bit lighter, because we will. It's going to be a wall, which partially is going to be lit up by the light. So yeah. So we finished with characters, which is a good thing for us. Now let's just go to the table now. What the heck? Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. I mistakenly chose the colors for some reason. Okay, that's good. We need to make it black and white. Filter mask. Desaturate. Up this point. Luminosity, yes. Where this one? Okay, swatches. Flat layer. Need to be careful with in between layers transitioning. Okay. So next, of course, is the table. Table, for the most part, this is the tablecloth. Tablecloth is where are our tablecloth? Forgot about it. Table accessories. Oh yeah, cloth. Tablecloth, matte surface texture. Yeah, for the most part it's matte surface. That means that the lightest lights for the surface is 89 and darkest darks is going to be 79. Color. I can't wait. Actually, it's more than enough to just turn off this one. We already have black and white, so I don't think that we need to use this one in addition. I can already thought about this, but then decided, screw it. But I'm going to use the either way, but nope. We actually could made a little bit shortcut with only turn off and turn on the color. Need color, don't need color. Okay, sketch, wireframe. Let's just go with the darkest darks. So for this part of the tablecloth, the darkest dark is going to be this one. This is what's not going to lighten up. This one actually going to be partially in the dark. No, actually this one's going to be in light, because light will shine, and this is actually slightly in. Of course it's going to be a little bit darker than this part, the lightest part, but not in this value range. It's going to be something in between the darkest dark and the light and the middle tone, which is our local value. And since I'm not working with in-betweens, I'm just going to depict. But let's just either way paint it a little bit darker, just for the sake of creating. Again, these values need to create good contrast of the table, for the table, different parts of the table, and for our character too. So that's one of the reasons why I actually chose this particular value, again, by knowing that this one will be a little bit darker, and we can go lighter for this one. And the same goes for this one. This one, since it's in the dark already, I'm not going to pick values for this, again working with the biggest things. And the lightest lights are going to be in here, you say. Throughout the whole table. Actually, it could be a problematic thing though. Okay, maybe I need to make this not local value but actually the highlight or the lightest light, and then in between is going to be 79, which is this one. And the darkest dark is going to be this one. But it could create problems in here. Because again, if I'm going to make this part of the table, which is basically lit up by light, it's going to be too light. It will just stole light from these. You see? Pretty close. So when I actually determined a value for this one, I thought of highlight, the lightest light. So yeah, definitely this one needs to be darker. Unfortunately, don't have another choice. This is it. This part in between. This actually is going to be lit up slightly. This will fade in the... This one partially is going to be lit up. This one will be in the dark because it goes under the table. This one will be lit up, and this one will be in the middle. So yeah, that means that this is our actually lightest light, so it's not a middle, so it's not local value. Local value actually going to be the lightest light. What not? Getting back. But this is not going to be our local value, this is going to be our local value. Mid-tone. Local value. Maybe I need to create different... Yeah, let's just create different charts for different parts of the... Just duplicate swatches. So this value range is going to be strictly for birds. It's going to be a bird's value range. This is going to be a table area value range. Maybe I just need to call them primary and secondary focus. This is better. Exactly. Primary focus value range and secondary focus value range. Exactly that. Duplicate this one and create the same for the third. Tertiary focus. Tertiary focus value range. Again, this is the... Since we have only one cloth, we just call it cloth. Don't think that we need something more than cloth. Again, next thing that I'm going to work with in the secondary focus, that's safe by the way, is no. So this is the local. Higher. This is the light, which was, by the way, established again as a local, but it doesn't work that, so we actually decided to make local a little bit lower in color or in value. And the darkest darks is going to be twice as dark. So again, 59. No, too dark. 69. 69. Local. Local. Lightest, darkest. Difference in contrast in 20 in between light and dark, and middle is 79. Again, because this is a matte surface and it has usually low contrast. Good. Again, I hope it's actually going to work, because I don't know if it's going to work for everything. At least, again, the more I will practice this thing, the more it will make sense. I hope eventually it's going to work. Because again, using the theory and applying it to practice, and like understanding how it applied to practice and trying to apply it to practice, it will work, because it is definitely will help me to establish these value ranges, not randomly and not by just comparing them what looks best and what not. I created a specific way of controlling specific values for specific color materials, which is hope will work. I think it will work. Let's see. Okay, so we done with the table. Next, it's probably going to be, again, I could go super small and create values for these things, but again, I'm not going to dive into these things because they are super small and I just can't create the good variety for them, unfortunately. We don't have enough pixels to do that, so we're establishing values for the biggest parts of our illustration because these things are not going to be that visible. Or maybe I will do that, I don't know. Let's just for the board for the most part. Again, for the board, this is going to be the lightest part of the board. The same goes for this one. This one is going to be the lightest part because everything that actually in here in direct light. That means that whatever value we established for these things, for the most part, is going to be the lightest area. So not per se a local middle value. We need to switch them a little bit. I think maybe in the future projects I will call it not local color but the apparent, or not the local value but apparent value, like the value that actually appears, because for instance in this particular instance, since the light is hitting this surface, for the most part this is definitely not local value. It's the value that actually appears in this particular conditions that the most, because it's in the light. But I don't know, we'll think about that. Pikachu. Yeah, it actually kind of works even in color, which is super cool. Also, it would be a good thing to establish at this point casting shadows. The thing about casting shadows, I think usually casting shadows are twice as dark as the darkest value of the object, I think. But it's all going to be depend like in their actual conditions. But when a lot of light sources actually shining, and it becomes a little bit lighter. So I think we need to choose, and again we still need to think about the surface on which this shadow will be actually placed, not per se about the object that drops the shadow. Yeah, so we will actually work with casting shadows at the end. First we need to establish the darkest darks and the lights for this one. By the way, they actually will tell us the casting shadows, because casting shadows are actually going to be the darkest dark for the surface on which these casting shadows are casted upon. Yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Okay, good. Continue. So, table is done. I don't think that I will create some type of variations for these, although I could, but they are super, again, using the same method. Although they are separate, they are different. For instance, if we're going to talk about teacup and teapot and plates, they are actually for the most part reflective. So that's why I'm not going to work with them, because they will completely change because of their surroundings. This is going to, I think for the most part they're going to be glossy. That means that their contrast will be slightly different. So if this is the lightest light for this, which is going to be the actual highlight, that means middle is going to be, let's just, for teacup and teapots, I think they will be from one material. So let's just call it ceramics, I guess. Ceramics. So 96 is going to be the lightest light for ceramics. Oh, that's why we actually picking color. Don't need color. It's going to be different without a color. 95. We're barely going to see it, but it's present. Again, a little bit stronger contrast, so it means it's not going to be just difference in 10. Probably difference is going to be a little bit stronger. Probably 80. And 80 is going to be our local. No, don't tell me that they're the same. They are the same. So we have problem in certain areas. Let's hope it's not going to break things. No, I guess the middle values stays the same. Changes are actually happening only with the lightest lights and darkest darks. Because again, glossy, they're pretty much similar with the matte. Difference usually goes with the darkest darks and lightest lights. So, and since I didn't determine a middle for it, and I'm actually going from lightest light, that means that I need to be super careful. Let's go with 85, because we have a lot of things in here. Yeah, I think I actually placed them too far. There's a lot of going back and forth. I need to move them closer. Oh. Because I definitely need to move them closer. So again, 95 is going to be the light. Actually, it could be even lighter. Maybe I need to use 85 as the middle one, as actual local. Because I actually wanted to look for the ceramics pretty light, since it's going to be in the light for the most part. Yeah, it will create the best contrast. So yeah, let's keep it actually in middle one. The highlight is definitely going to be something like 98 almost, so it's going to be super light. We're barely going to notice it from the white background. And the darkest dark is going to be probably 88. funny thing is, contrast in here even smaller, but this is only because this is ceramics, and I don't know. Usually contrast is average in here, but it actually appears a little bit smaller. Maybe because this object is not that big and we have limited range to play with. So this is where you probably need to find compromises and break the rules. So ideally, for these type of objects, like, we need to increase slightly the value range. But since I can't put it too low, because if I'm going to make it lower, it's just going to be the same as the tablecloth, which is not something that we need. So this one still needs to be rendered properly. So keeping the middle one as the 95, 98 is going to be the highlight. Maybe we even go into the super highlight. Maybe we'll make it even 100 or 99. In the final render, and the darkest part actually going to be the same as this one. This is the lightest part for the board. Again, we don't have enough place to actually find the darkest darks for this one. Hi there, Jugovision. How are you doing? How's your day? So yeah, definitely not going to work on these small things because again, I don't have enough place. Like, this is super pixelized. I just can't properly showcase things in here. Oh, cool, congrats. This is cool that Twitch is repaired this problem with languages. Again, like, of course they would in time, which is pretty cool. Okay, I'm again messed up with the layers. First pass, cut, paste, place, place. With what exactly you need my help with? Oh, okay. Patty. Okay, ceramics. Oh yeah, yeah. We'll talk about design definitely. Definitely need to figure out something. But again, you're just going to throw me your ideas, and I will just reflect. You see what you like, what not, and then we will just decide. Because I know that it's pretty hard to understand like what you want. You need usually some type of a mirror to throw ideas and then bounce them back and decide what you want, because it's not easy. Yeah, we'll talk about that definitely. Like, you set the time when we need to talk, and let's just connect and talk. It's not a problema. Yeah, whatever actually best for you. Just hit me on Discord. Again, I'm always present in Discord, so. Beep-beep-doo-doo. So these three colors work here, these things are here. Or in reality, yeah, yeah. This works too. Maybe we could even watch something like NXT, probably. Something short. Or Total Divas. On Thursday. But how about Alexa Bliss? Really? You betrayed her. No! How could you? Okay, so this is not working. When I... oh. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, we will talk on a week. Are you heading to sleep already? Yeah. Good night sleep. Bye bye. Karachki. Welcome turn. Okay. Yeah, definitely not going to create values for these because again, we're not going to see them for the most part. They're just not going to be visible. Like if I'm going to zoom out further, we're just not going to see them at all. No matter what I'm going to put here, overall contrast, it's not going to affect our overall contrast and overall look because this is too small of a scale. So let's just stick to big objects and subjects in our scene because, yep. Again, not going to create for this one, for everything on the table. There's two small things to create different contrasts for them. Let's just go into the overall thing. So let's just actually start or continue with floor, ceiling, and walls. This is definitely a crucial thing to create the darkest darks and lightless lights for us after characters because they actually surrounding our characters, and by creating these things for them, it will be a super cool thing to do. So let's do that. So now continue. So floor, where is the floor? Table wood, mat. Again, there's not many information for the table, so I'm not going to bother about these two sticks, which the table stands. Floor and ceiling are metal. They are actually diffused glossy with the touch of surface texture. Okay, that means that they can change in light pretty drastically. But let's see what's going to work. So again, glossy has more value range. If this is our base, this is actually base. Lightest area are going to be probably a little bit lighter. By the way, this is something that I definitely need to figure out. Okay, light, dark. So this one is going to be somewhat in the dark. This one is going to be lit up. When I created it, I consider it as the middle one. So if light is actually going to hit this area, let's try to put 35 and let's just try maybe 40 as the lightest area. Does it will affect our characters or not? It will definitely help to bring or to pop up to pop out a particular elements in the scene, which actually will be super beneficial for us. Of course, lightning is not going to hit this area. There's actually going to be a dark thing in there, but still. Just want to see how it's going to look. This is the actual area which the light is going to hit. Except this border. Oh no! I figured out that we have slight tangent for the table and this area. Not good. That means that we need to either shift the circle a little bit closer to us, because creating a tangent in here, not a good idea. Yeah, let's just move it slightly move it on the bottom, like a couple of twists. Yeah, this is actually get rid of, that way we will get rid of this tangent. Again, this line should not intersect with the table and make a continuation for the table. It needs to create some type of a regular transition. It's not a problem to make things right. Because if this is going to be the lightest light for the floor, it's actually going to be a pretty cool thing. Because that way Quintessa is going to be pretty distinct, because she's going to be relatively dark. At least in the light areas. And actually it could create pretty interesting contrast. But again, we will see how it's going to work overall. It could work in particular areas, but could break things in different areas. Such as, for instance, Chuck, around Chuck. Again, this is the lightest light for the floor. The area of the spotlight that will be lit up by the sun shining through the ceiling. Okay, kind of good. Looks pretty interesting. It actually kind of accentuates this place, like this. I like this contrast actually. Super cool. Awesome. It even works in color. The only thing that we need to now check out how it works without sketch. Does it create problems with the actual transitioning? So right here we have 40, right here we have 47. Pretty close, but we could like actually depict some type of a lost edge in here. And by the way, this part could be actually reflected and have a little bit light, so it's not a problem. Okay, this contrast definitely works awesome. It will accentuate the heads and make them even pop out even more from the floor, which is awesome. Okay, the same goes for this one. Again, even wood works fine. Pretty distinct contrast. Again, in between these two, good contrast. Contrast in between darkest darks, because this part actually going to be in the shadow for the red. And the cool thing is, now this shadow actually creates pretty good contrast. But before it was actually the same. Seriously? Like 40 here, 40 here. That's pretty cool. So, the same value the same local value is going to be present in here, but eventually it will create pretty good contrast because now there's a difference. Awesome. Good, good, good. And the lightest light, of course, is just not going to hit this part. It means that somewhere in here we could actually run into problems with creating a silhouette, because since the local value of the red is pretty similar to local value of the lightest area of the floor, it could create problems with in particular places. But for the most part it's not that important, because we're still going to see a teacup pretty vividly or clearly, and a little trouble with creating the silhouette could be just faked with a slight change of a contrast in the particular areas. It's not that big of a deal. Again, as an artist we could control the behavior of the values, and if something doesn't work we could break the rules in order to make values work, and because of this small area that could not work, change the whole thing, which kind of works. It's not a smart idea. So division of these are pretty close, about 10. The problem is this area actually going to be a little bit lighter in values, because, or not, let's see. No, actually it's not that evident. Let's see in color. Yeah, this area actually lighter, so it's probably going to be a lighter value, so the difference in between here, like the contrast, will actually be clearer, which is cool. It's pretty what if I make this one black and white? I actually want to see how the value of the belly changes with the overall value range. Probably edit. Then we need to go into black and white. It's pretty hard to understand where is the black and white in here. Oh, let's just go into adjustments and get rid of the color. Yep. So yeah, actually there's no difference in value. There's a difference in actual in saturation. So less color present in here, because as you see, if we're going down and get rid of the, now belly is not visible at all. So contrast for the belly button, for the belly, actually created by saturation of the color, not with values per se, which is actually a pretty good thing. Now we know how to control it. Good. Did I save it? No, no, probably not. Clear division of contrast between these two or values, and the same goes for this one. For bubbles, probably 2, but again, we don't have that many information about bubbles from all possible angles. We could use some. Yeah, definitely clear separation of contrast. Like here is almost dark. So yeah. So yeah, that means that this part actually not going to be lighter. It's just going to stay the same. Just kind of cool. Will create slight contrast, which will actually keep focus on this area, which is even better, because the more focus stays in this area, the better. We don't want to attract attention to this area, and if it's not going to have that much contrast, we will attract our attention, viewers' attention, to this part, probably to this part. So good. So let's continue. Now let's find the darkest darks for this one. So lightest lights kind of works. By the way, let's just let's first find the darkest darks and then lightest lights. So okay. Now about the shadow. Since this part is actually lit up, that means that shadow is going to be probably the same color as the local value. Because if I'm going to make it darker, it's not going to look good in contrast. So let's see. So for instance, let's just assume that right here we have a custom shadow. I think it needs to be lighter. Custom shadow in here. We need to plan custom shadows. They're actually going to be barely visible in particular places. But this needs to be the darkest dark. I'm going to put this darkest dark in here. It will destroy all contrast that we have in here, which is kind of good because we don't need that big of a contrast in this area. We need to hide this area from the viewer's eye. It's still, contrast is still present, so this is the 13. This is lighter. Let's just go with 16. Let's assume that this is the darkest dark for the floor. And it's going to be present only in the places where light is not hitting. Almost. So I assume we will see a little bit of light hidden here, because again I wanted to make this edge a little bit softer, so I will just soften this edge and we'll create in between the darks and lights. So slight changes in values are definitely going to be present in these areas. For instance, the light from this fire will slightly lit up this area, but it's going to be super subtle, so not going to over stress about it that much. So yeah, this area actually going to be in the dark for the most part. Light will start to shine probably from here, which is kind of a strange because I didn't plan this. So I actually wanted to light, but that way I actually could create pretty cool, like pretty interesting depth. No, I think it's too far. Light will still be present in here, but right here it's going to go and then disappear. So these are the darkest darks for our floor. Supposedly they are going to be here. Because almost no light actually like hitting in these areas, because spotlight just works like a spotlight. It actually doesn't shine that far on the floor, and it's just like reflects and goes a little bit in the walls, but then could reflect from the walls and make this light area a little bit lighter. But again, we're not considering bounced light yet, so I'm just going to go in the this area is not going to be in the light too. Especially this area is going to be super dark. This will actually accentuate our contrast even more, because now the floor and these parts are going to be super dark. It's still, this contrast of these things are still going to be present, but it's going to be super low, and this is actually something that will work. I will still make it visible because the fire from it actually will create slight glow, and there's going to be a lot of, since it's metal, it's going to be a lot of highlights on each metal part. It actually will look even cooler. So it's not going to be complete dark, and they're not going to mesh up with each other. So it goes in here, and actually will stop somewhere in here. And since we already know the lightest light for our light area, we're just going to establish where this light... What? Yes, this one. The lightest light for the floor, we're just going to paint the lightest area for the floor and establish where this light area actually fades out into the local color, local value. Yeah, we need to be careful with this because this one is pretty close to our character. I think till this point would be enough. I don't want to like make it bigger. This is actually the light area where the light actually shines and make things lighter in the background. Again, we'll create better contrast in here, which is cool. It will make these piles look even more visible, which is good too for us. And it's not going to reach this part, so now I need to figure out where. Actually, I don't need to figure out anything. I just need to later create a line from here and understand where light is going to hit ceiling and with colors that actually looks pretty cool. It's going to look even better when we actually blur them out. Let's do that. Dark is dark, light is light. Again, it's not final, but it's just like the suggestion that these lines are actually blurred. Okay, blur in here actually going to be super subtle. I don't want to make it too blurry. I still want it to present. I want it to be present. Yeah, we don't have enough pixels to create a pretty good looking blur, so it actually looks not that cool, but still. Just get rid of our yeah, it will definitely take me a little bit more time than I thought so I think we will end this fully in a couple of sessions. Definitely not going to be super fast. Okay, this area actually is going to lose a lot, so... Oh no, I'm actually working with the colors again. Mistake. Mistake. We don't work with colors here. We work with values. Of course, light is going to gradually decrease the closer the light approaches. It will create, of course, the dark areas in here, which will be pretty cool to depict. Of course, these shadows are going to be pretty long. I don't want to make them super long, because ideally they will be long, but I don't want to make them super long because it's going to ruin everything, their shape. By the way, the same goes for these, or not. They actually, yes, shadows definitely going to be present in here, but right here it's actually going to be a little bit blurred out. You're barely going to see it, but it's still probably going to be present though. No, for the most part, light is just going to fade out, and this shadow is almost not going to be present at all. Barely going to see it. Same goes for this one. Shadows are going to be clear enough here, but they will fade out the further they go in the space, because there's almost no light hitting this area, so a lot of bounced lights, but not the actual lights. Also, this light will just basically make this shadow not apparent. So is this. Good. Okay. Again, for casting shadows, I will think next time, because they definitely will be created somewhere in here, in these areas. So before we're actually going to work on casting shadows, we need to finish with establishing shapes or values for each of transformers, and actually working on transformers is going to be a long time. So let's hope that throughout the session at least I will finish with ceiling and the walls, because working on transformers and trying to figure out the values for them is going to be a harder thing, because they have a little bit more complex form. Not a little bit, but much more complex form. And again, we're not going to establish their form super realistically, but just enough to get the impression how these values are going to work that we basically established. Okay, we left about 15 minutes, or more, a little bit more, yeah, but still. Let's just go with, I will keep ceiling for later, because for the most part this part of the ceiling actually going to have light part. It's almost not going to be a dark part at all. So that means that we need to keep, so this is our middle and this is our highlight. So this part is definitely going to be in light. It's going to create a pretty long shadow for this so-called triangle area. Actually, pretty long shadow. Maybe I will even extend this shadow in here. A little bit of light probably will hit in here. Nope. Actually, there's not going to be a lot of light. Most of the light will actually hit the side parts. This one not going to be that prominent. Not go too far. Make it super soft. And again, since this is actually going to be a diffused reflection, we actually going to see a lot something like this. So there's type of effects going to be present almost everywhere on the floor and ceiling. So for the walls, where are the walls? Yeah, they're actually going to be the same. Diffused metal, surface texture. So let's start with walls. Walls. This is the middle one. Let's see the light one, and then we'll try the dark one. Huh. Light one barely visible though. Oh, because we're using brush that smudges things out. So yeah. Okay. This part of course is going to be in here. We're partially going to see this thing in here. Same goes for this. Light shining through these things, and from now on light's just going to hit right where it needs to. Cool. It will create pretty cool contrast for the shadows for statues that's in the back. Will pop out there. By the way, this area actually is going to be in shadow, but again, we're not creating casting shadows yet. We're creating the areas of light for now. Areas of light, the areas of light. Okay, again, this zone is going to be a little bit darker. So light is actually going up till this point. Actually, it could hit this part too. Because I think making the transition of light in here would be a pretty cool idea. Again, it will help us to make this silhouette better, although it's going to be a lot of dark, lighter parts in here because this statue is going to be partially lit up by this light, but not like fully. Still, contrast is going to be present. Pinku, pinku, pinku. Huh? Mistake, you say? Actually, light goes from here and then probably somewhere in here. So we're probably going to see light in here too. Okay, and ready to do. We need to be careful with this transition. She goes a little bit straighter in here. tilt, 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 and then straighter, straighter, straighter. Okay, and the darkest darks, of course, are going to be down. Again, they are glossy, and ideally they have to have a little bit more contrast. I think not just 10 difference in 10, because right now they actually give difference in 10. But the problem is, if I'm going to create this one in 45, it's going to be too close to this one, and I don't want to make this one lighter. We need to maintain the contrast of this pretty strong. I'm going to make this one 45, it's going to be pretty close to 50, and from 50 to 70 difference in 20 between completely different types of materials is not going to work, so at this point. But I will think about that. This is something to actually think about. I either will make this area lighter, definitely not going to change this area. And let's just create the darkest darks for this. And again, I need to be careful with creating darkest darks for this one, because it could intersect with this one, 23, 20. Seriously, it already intersects. 25. So I need to be careful. The darkest darks for the wall can't be as the middle value for our floor. That means that we need to make them darker. $30, $20, $25. No, yeah, 20 actually works, yeah. What? Again, this is a good thing that we don't have, not going to have any contrast in here, or less contrast. As I said before, this area not supposed to attract attention. It's supposed to create some type of psychological pressure, and by being dark around, it actually will create this. I think the darkest area again is going to be determined the same way, so it's going to be here. Oh no, we're actually going to intersect with this one. Not very good. I probably eventually will make this area lighter, of course. It's not supposed to be that dark. For the most part, this darkness is going to be present somewhere in here, but right here, actually, for the most part, we're going to have something in between. So it's not like complete final how it's going to look, of course. I'm just establishing the boundaries for the darkest and lightest area, just to establish them, that's it. Where they are going to be. And okay, nope, actually the division is going to be here. And of course these areas are going to be a little bit lighter, because this light from our spotlight will shine will bounce from this area and actually will bounce on the walls. So it's definitely going to be lighter. So these areas are not going to create this type of darkness. They're definitely going to be lighter. Because again, I'm not going to consider all these bounce lights now because it's not that important at this particular moment. We need to establish just basically the darkest darks and the lightest lights and see how they're going to work. If they're going to work, then the rest of the questions we're actually going to answer on the rendering stages, because these actually questions are answered and on the rendering stages usually. Bounce lights, occlusions, although we still need to plan casting shadows ideally, because if we're not going to plan casting shadows it could create problems. But the thing is, we're not going to have that many casting shadows in here, casting shadow in here and here, slight casting shadows, not slightly actually, pretty visible casting shadows going to be created under our characters, and since this light kind of shines in here, most of these casting shadows are going to cover stools on which they are actually sitting, or chairs, Transformers heads. Yeah. Of course, casting shadow for the table, which will be somewhere in here. It will partially cover Quintessa. Casting shadows for these things, for the helmets themselves. So slight casting shadows could be present in here and here from this light. From this light, casting shadows will be created in here on the wall. Right here they actually will fade out, well, probably barely going to be visible, although they're actually pretty close to this division. I think we could make them apparent here. So yeah, the same goes for this. So not that many casting shadows are going to be present, and of course shadows made by parts of the bodies and etc. definitely going to be added, but yeah. So yeah, throughout the session, main goal was to finish somewhere. So I think the next session, the last thing that I'm going to do is blur these things out, just for them to look a little bit better, and put them in this chart. And that's kind of going to be it for this session, and starting from next session we will continue to work with establishing darkest darks and lightest lights for the Transformers themselves, for their swords, and after we will finish this, for these piles, for this helmet, from these helmets on which Angry Birds are sitting, and for Quintessa and for garbage piles, just slightly depict these things, and that's it. And after this we will probably go into the final stages finally. Okay, let's just blur things. Right here actually going to be pretty sharp shadow. We could blur her, but I don't think that it's going to be too blurred. I think we need to make it, or no, let's just blur it out, why not? It's not very accurate, but whatever. It's just a okay then. So again, there's still not that smooth of a transition because I didn't cover in-betweens, but there's definitely going to be in-betweens. For instance, this area is going to be darker, which was going to be in between the lightest part and the local value part. Same goes for this one. Right here is probably going to be that dark, but then it's just going to slowly fade out. So again, it's not going to be exact like this. Same will go for this one. I just need to establish all these areas to be working. Let's use super blur in here, by the way, which I kind of wanted at the beginning, but didn't have proper brush for it. It's not good. Of course, I still didn't establish the darkest darks for this part because it's definitely going to be a little bit darker for these lines, but it's something that we actually will work on rendering. Again, this is not that important part. It will just basically adapt to whatever value it's going to have, so I'm not going to bother about this now. But it definitely needs to be a little bit darker here, like without a question. So yeah, and the last thing that we are going to do is to just take these values first. Let's just go into swatches. So first value that we need to create for, so for ceramics we created, for cloth, for tablecloth we created. No, for ceramics we didn't create it. But again, it's pretty easy for ceramics. This is the lightest area for this part. All ceramics are going to have the lightest area in 95. This is the lightest area for this thing. For table we already depicted. For where to put floor, I think we need to create the third additional focus. That's pretty ugly E. Additional focus. So floor, Is this the proper way to spell it? Floor. Forget again. Floor. Actually, floor and ceiling. Let's just call it FS. This is going to be a walls. Floor, ceiling, and walls. And of course, background is going to work in here too. BG. All these elements that outside are actually going to be placed in here. The same statues are going to be actually placed in here too. Right here is going to be a ceramics, then board on which teapot stands, fruits, sweets, everything is going to be here. They probably will change. Every fruit and sweet is going to have different value. Or we could actually create something like this, like 3 types of sweets, and for each 3 types of fruits, and for each fruit we will throw different value, which is not a problem. I'm going to keep them by categories. Yeah, and yeah, the final thing that we need to do is just to depict 4 walls. So this is the middle, or the local value for the floor and ceiling. That means that the lightest part is going to be 30. Oh, come on, again. The lightest part is going to be a 35. Super annoying. 25. Click, and then. What? Yes. No. It can't be true. And 14 or 15 is going to be this part. Check this out. We will check them later. So, walls, going to be middle one, this one. That means that the highest one is going to be 40. And the lowest one, 80. 90. No, 80. Or 12, 20. We'll think about that. Background, don't know. And statues, still don't know. No, for statues I just know the value range standard. Same goes for this one. We know local values for everything though, which is pretty cool. We still need to think where to place those, so I'm not going to work with sweets and fruits again, it's too small. That's kind of pretty close to the end, I think. Let's just check them out. Turn out, I will pass. Get rid of unnecessary swatches. Where exactly this thing? I need to turn off this thing with light sources, and also kind of wanted to turn off this one too. Yeah, here it is. Spotlight. Just want to see things without lines. Okay, in terms of the atmosphere, actually it kind of works. Like, this spotlight actually will then create a halo effect in here, and actually going to look a little bit angelic, like, I don't know, this area that they're actually like throwing a tea party. So this is actually pretty cool. So this light is going to shine from here in the spotlight, slightly going to be visible. The halo effect. This thing works. Again, let's just check out the boundary. So yeah, actually right here is 20. The lightest light is 40, and the middle one is 30. Slight changes, actually, for the most part, this is the same. So walls again, 30, 40, and 20. A little bit lighter. For this one, the lightest area is going to be 40. The middle area we lost, it's probably here, 25. And the darkest area is going to be 14. $12 in here. Probably too dark. Make it 15 actually. No. 20. Yes. And again 13. Why we need to be careful with the darks? Because again, as I said, these are going to be dark too, and they are actually 12, and this area 14. There is a difference, but we need to be super they're still going to have difference in color actually, so the difference in color will actually create this separation, although value is going to be pretty similar. So yeah, overall it's pretty cool. Again, for just this example of how these values are going to work, I think it's more than enough at this point, considering... Oh, come on. I chose the right one, why? I just want to blur things in here too. We could create slight blur in here. And of course, when we're going to add small details like casting shadows, things are definitely going to change for the better, because addition of this casting shadows will changes the game pretty drastically. So when we going to add a different things, darkest darks and lightest lights for the transformers themselves, so it will make things look a little bit better. But so far I actually like how things look, and again, if they look good now, at the end they will look even better, because when we add realism to it, all these things that like work with realism, such as occlusions, bounced lights, and bounced colors, and all these things, it will make an in-betweens between these values. Of course, it will make things a little bit more soft, but still the actual like feeling that I'm getting from it, this is exactly the thing that I wanted so far. Like, cool. So again, without it, with it, without it, with it. So we added a little bit more like actual feel to it, because before this is just composition, but by adding these in betweens, we actually now, even from far, we can see that, oh yeah, these are definitely in the spotlight and light is definitely shining towards them. And this thing in the back actually not fighting, because before this was the only thing that kind of brought our attention second from table, but now it's not. It still kind of brings a little bit of attention, and I think we will change it by adding creating an actual background in design. Yeah, design is definitely going to be a super hard part to do, because we need to design a lot of things. Like I kind of spent time on design, but a couple of things. We kind of designed Quintessa, Transformers. We didn't design swords. We didn't design. By the way, let's just make a quick thing with what we need to design. Just a list. Okay, need to design sword, garbage piles, I'm not going to check spelling, so although we could just watch this one. So gate, swords. Oh, by the way, let's just do that. Instead of writing them, let's just put this one in here and create D with a circle, and put D with a circle whenever we need to design something. It's going to be easy actually to make it smaller. And let's just copy it and copy it again. I just make this contrast of this a little bit better. So we need to design background. We need to design table, like the actual table legs for the table. We could do this. It's not going to be that like problematic, but still we need to think about this. Even small designs are important. Floor and ceiling, for the most part they're kind of already designed, but with this part, but no, I don't think that we need to design them necessarily. I think they're already designed, although I need to think about ceiling. Maybe I would create something for the ceiling, so let's just keep design for the tablecloth. Kind of designed already. It's pretty easy. In terms of a design, the only thing that we could design is textures, but I don't think so. Statues already designed. Chairs already designed. By the way, statues, we have a design only for one statue. The other statues are actually not designed, but we could like redesign them slightly. So for the most part, statues are designed, so let's just go with the big things. Chairs are designed. Garbage pallets need to design. These things too. copy paste them, and quintessence swords too need to be designed. Gate kind of already designed. Walls don't need to be designed. By the way, let's just do a different thing. Let's say first. We're already past the time, so just move these whatever we want. So teacups and plates definitely need to be designed. By the way, make this one smaller because we're actually working with the smaller scale in here. They look strange. Teapots, stand for the sweets definitely need to be designed. We can establish it like base for it, but in close-up it needs to be designed. Sweets definitely need to understand how they are going to look and what type of sweets we're going to use. Fruits, we can establish that there's going to be an apples and oranges and lemon, but we still need to design their form. So in terms of the actual form, we don't have design for them. So we just understand what type of subject we're going to do. The same goes for the board. I still don't know how this protective board is actually going to look. For Angry Birds, for the most part, they are already designed. So their overall body, beak, legs, eyes, brows, and individual feathers. No, individual feathers not yet. Although everything is kind of designed. Yeah, it turns out that Angry Birds are designed. There's still a lot of things to actually make their design look even better, because this is definitely not the final. But for the most part, we have their design because we have references for them, so they don't need to be designed that much. I could say the same probably for the fruits, but no, actually we will design fruits to make them look not just round, but work with their shapes to make them contrasted. The same goes for the sweets. I still don't know what type of sweets we are actually going to place here. Yeah. So that's kind of it. So as you see, we still like have a lot of designs to go through in the final stage. So till this point, we actually worked on design of Angry Birds only, like trying to understand their basic shape, their beaks and whatever, but they will still be slightly redesigned, and we will definitely work on design and make it better in the final stages. We kind of worked on the design for a gate, walls by creating these elements, chairs by understanding that there are going to be a part of the transformer that we actually designed in 3D. No, first in 2D and then translated it into 3D, of course. Chairs, again, statues and chairs, for the most part designed. They will be slightly redesigned for each statue and each chair, but not like drastically. And of course tablecloth, for the most part it's just going to be a simple tablecloth with the slight design element in here, and in terms of the texture, it's just, we'll see what's going to work, what's not. And that's kind of the only thing that we designed for the most part. The rest is going to be designed in the final design stage. Basically, it's final line art because again, we can't design these small things in here. We can't design the proper. We can't create proper design for a teapot. We can't create proper design for this stand. We can't create proper design for this teacup. That's why we, for the most part, worked only on things that we we can design in the small scale. So statues, Quintessa, chairs, and Angry Birds themselves. The rest is too small to design. Although we still need to think about like these garbage piles and try to understand how to design them. But again, since there's going to be piles of garbage and they're going to have a lot of small elements to them, I don't think that would be a good idea to design them in here, because I don't know, maybe we will go back here and actually design them in here, and then we'll redesign them in the final sketch. But we'll see. We'll see. So yeah, I guess on that note we'll slowly wrap up the session. Again, still next session we will continue to establish these value ranges. Maybe to save time I actually will create different things for this chart to make them already present and not spend time to create this chart. And with so yeah, and starting from next we will establish values for statues in the next session. We will establish values for statues, for garbage piles, for chairs, which are actually going to be the same with slight changes, and for Quintessa. So we left only with two like actually big elements that we need to establish a values for, and after we will like see how it looks in this and in this with color and with light, and if it's going to work perfectly from this far, then we will proceed into the final design stage. So yeah, finally getting closer and closer to the end, which is actually revealing, or no, like I feel a little bit of relief, but at the same time I'm kind of scared, because the final stage is definitely going to be something that I have less experience with. So again, I didn't render that many things in my artistic journey, throughout my artistic journey. So rendering is something that I understand theoretically, but practically this is probably I have the less experience with rendering. So let's hope that my knowledge and a couple of studies that I did throughout my artistic journey, actually a couple of studies, I didn't study that much rendering. I just understood it on the theoretical basics, and it's definitely interesting how it's going to work. So yeah, on that note we will end this session. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here, have a nice day or night, and see you in the next session. Bye bye.